Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back. This is going to be our last session. In this, we are going to talk about language processing. And we are going to study uh, an Indian model of semantics. Definitely, classical India didn't have semantics in the sense the modern Western world has it. But it had something very different, which is called the Shabda Bodha. It's the very process of understanding linguistic expression. We are trying to read it in terms of ideas that are very important in cognitive science. In order to do that, we also need to understand uh, formal semantics, that is the contemporary Western semantics. So we start with that, and then we switch to the Indian version of semantics. The formal semantics we are going to consider is basically Montague semantics. Uh, Perhaps many of us know it is mainly developed by Richard Montague, and it's based on the contributions of the best logicians and grammarians and linguists. We'll see a few of the principles, foundational principles used here. What is formal semantics? Formal Montague semantics. It is truth conditional. So these principles are very foundational to the whole understanding whole framework. One is this task is semantics conception of truth. So the principle schematically presented, it is something like this. Snow is white is true. So snow is white is a sentence, right? This sentence, snow is white, is true if and only if snow is really white. Little bit like the Naiyayikas principle, if you remember that this is a snake is true if snakeness really belongs to the meaning of the word this. So the next, what is understanding a declarative sentence? This is the main theory of understanding in the semantic framework. The assumption is understanding a declarative sentence, something like John is a good boy or Paula is a good student, something like that. Understanding a declarative sentence, S, is to understand the conditions under which S could be true, not that S is true. So even if I tell you that, it need not be true that the president of India is Kapil Dev. It's not true, but you understand it because you know the conditions under which this could be true. So understanding this sentence means knowing the conditions under which it could be true. Lastly, Frege's compositionality principle, which is absolutely central. The meaning of the whole is a function of the meaning of the parts and their mode of combination. Now, this we have to see. We need not understand it here, but anyway, slowly, eventually, we have to. And this is model theoretic. The approach we are going to adopt is model theoretic. What does it mean? It means that a sentence, a declarative sentence S, is true with respect to a model. There is no model irrespective, or there is no truth unrelated to a model. And the model consists mainly of entities and two truth values, 1 and 0. We'll see what it means. 1 is intuitively, 1 can be understood as truth, and 0 as falsity. Syntax. The syntax we are going to study is pretty much like Chomsky's syntax, what Chomsky did in syntactic structure, and it's a very simple version of that. Definitely not as complex as what Chomsky has been doing or did. Uh, so it's a phrase structure grammar. It doesn't have many rules. It doesn't have transformational rules. It doesn't have morphophonemic rules. But we should be happy with the phrase structure rules to start with. What is our syntax? This is our source book for semantics, formal semantics. We call it Doughty Wall Peters. So it is 1981. So this is it gives you information about the book. And I changed a portion of the book. I added a few things, and this is how. So here is our syntax. We basically will study this syntax. This is phrase structure syntax. What is phrase structure syntax? Basically, it's all about rewriting. So this means that S can be rewritten as either S conj S or neg S or N VP. And then VP can be rewritten as VI or VT and N. And then conj can be rewritten either as and or as or. N can be rewritten as Anvita or Shruti or Ajinkya or Nikhil. VI, so VI basically is intransitive verb, something like smokes or sleeps, or is a singer, which it's not a verb, it's a predicate, but we don't distinguish between something like is a singer and smokes, because after all, these are all functions. So predicates basically. So we have three one plus predicates here, three VIs, is a singer, is a philosopher, and smokes. And we have one VT. This stands for transitive verb. So knows, for it. So this needs two things, right? One has to know someone else. But this, so for example, is a singer requires just one thing. So you just can't say Anvita is a singer. And neg it is not the case that. So with this very small grammar, how many sentences can we make? We can make infinite sentences because this is recursive. So the recursion is somehow guaranteed here. We shall see how this grammar is to be used. So this can generate only grammatical, this will generate only grammatical sentence, and this will not generate any ungrammatical sentence. Although the set of things we deal with is very small, the outcome is infinite, as I said. We see a few sentences. For example, let's look at the derivation of the sentence Ajinkya is a philosopher. How do I go about it? I rewrite S as NVP, so I could rewrite S as NVP or neg S or S conj S. I have taken one route and I have rewritten VP as VI and VI as is a philosopher, and that's how I have derived Ajinkya is a philosopher. And look at the slightly more complicated sentence. It is not the case that Anvita knows Shruti. So here S has been rewritten as neg and S. And this is the recursion. I could have brought, so they belong to the same type, same category, but still one can come under another, right? So that is how recursion is possible. That is how you can have one sentence under another. So under is a loose term, but we understand what it means. And this S is once again rewritten as N and VP. VP is rewritten as VT and N. Remember, VP could be rewritten, let's get back. So VP could be rewritten either as VI or as VT and N. So we have taken the second route here, VT and N, and VT is rewritten as knows and N as Shruti, and this N as Anvita and neg. It is not the case that Anvita knows Shruti. So this intuitively grammatically correct sentence can be now represented by using our phrase structure rules. And then this is slightly more complicated. Our sentence is Ajinkya is a philosopher and Anvita is a singer. How to derive? Now we take another route which we haven't tested, S conj S, right? It could be neg S or S conj S or or NVP. So we have taken this S conj S root. So then the first S goes to NNVP, VP goes to VI, and finally VI goes to is a philosopher. So then this N goes to Ajinkya. So you get Ajinkya is a philosopher on the one hand, and this S, very similar derivation, you get Anvita is a singer. And then the conj goes to and. So the final sentence is Ajinkya is a philosopher and Anvita is a singer. So the sentences, the grammatically correct sentences you can think of now can be generated by this very simple grammar, very simple phrase structure grammar. But what about sentences that should not be generated? Now, we will see that sentences that should not be generated cannot be generated. Try this. Is a philosopher and Nikhil, which is rubbish. It's not a sentence. We understand it's ungrammatical. We will see very happily that this cannot be generated by our phrase structure grammar. Now, how could I do it? For this, S had to go to VP, conj, and N, but you don't find any such rule where you have this thing where S could be rewritten as VP, conj, N. If you look at it, there is nothing like VP, conj, N, right? So this rule is not there anyway. So this is a bad structure. So you cannot have it. This is how we do syntax. So syntax basically takes care of sentences that are to be considered by the semantic framework. So syntax sees to it that no bad sentence, no incorrect sentence is generated, is produced, and then all correct sentences have to be evaluated on the basis of the semantic structures the system has. So now we go to the semantics part of it. We are not actually getting into the details of how each and every bit is calculated, is computed. That would become complicated. We would just take up bits and pieces. For example, we take up so the basic values first, then we talk about the other values. Now this bracket, this very special bracket, means we are talking about the reference, right? So for example, here, imagine that this is not a symbol. This is Ajinkya himself. Once again, it applies to her also. This is Shruti herself. This is not a symbol. This too is Anvita herself. So the thing is, so the denotation or the reference of the word Ajinkya is this person, this real person. Let's pretend that this is a real person, not any sign or anything, right? So here you find, so you should know these people because we have to deal with them for some time, for a few minutes. So this is Ajinkya, this is Shruti. We are not talking about the names. These are the real individuals, and this is Anvita, and this is Nikhil. So then we go to the reference of is a singer. Is a singer is understood now as a function. You see, it's a mapping where Ajinkya is mapped to the truth value 0 to mean that Ajinkya is not a singer. Shruti is a singer, so she's mapped onto the truth value 1, and Anvita is mapped onto 1, meaning that she too is a singer, and Nikhil is mapped to 0, saying that he's not a singer. And is a philosopher. Here there are 3 philosophers, Ajinkya, Shruti, and Nikhil, and Anvita is not a philosopher, another function, and another mapping, and smokes. Definitely Shruti and Anvita do not smoke, and Ajinkya and Nikhil smoke. And a slightly complicated thing, this is like nose, right? What is the structure of nose? Somebody knows somebody. So unlike, it is not like the intuitive thing, because here the object comes first. So this is not the subject. So for example, how to check the value of a sentence like Shruti knows Nikhil. Here we have to, for some obvious reason which we cannot discuss here, you may read some basic stuff on it, why it is like this. So it goes reverse. So instead of checking the value for, so it is Shruti knows Nikhil. So instead of giving values Shruti and Nikhil to this function, you have to give Nikhil and Shruti. So you first have to go to the thing where Nikhil comes first, right? So the object first. So then you go to Shruti. Yes, this says that Shruti knows Nikhil. So the subject is here, the object is here, and then the truth value. So always it goes like this for some reasons. Uh, Now, the compositionality principle of Frege. Some people say it is attributed to Frege. Perhaps he didn't say this directly, but he said something very similar. So Ajinkya is a philosopher. Now you understand that is a philosopher is a function. I'm talking about the reference, the denotation of is a philosopher, and this Ajinkya in this bracket, that is the reference of Ajinkya, the real man Ajinkya, is given to it as an argument. And here comes the compositionality principle. The meaning of the whole, that is the meaning of Ajinkya is a philosopher, is a function of the meaning of the parts. Yes, so meaning of the parts and the mode of combination. This is not complicated. So there you have just one function and one argument. So the mode is not very important. Think of it. There is a difference between Shruti knows Nikhil and Nikhil knows Shruti. So in that case, it like the mode becomes very important. So you need to decide what you are computing, whether you are computing the truth value or the denotation of Shruti knows Nikhil or of Nikhil knows Shruti. So let us try to understand it. So here is the function is a philosopher. So where we said that Ajinkya, Shruti, and Nikhil are philosophers, and we give Ajinkya, the real person Ajinkya, not the name Ajinkya, as an argument. And because Ajinkya is mapped onto 1, the outcome is 1. 1 is yielded, which means our model tests and tells us that it is a true sentence. So it computes the very truth value of the sentence. And what is this function? I'm sure many of us know what it is, but for those who don't, just introduce it. I can't talk about it. Now, function is something like this. So x square as a function of x would be like this. It's a mapping. Every function is a mapping. What kind of a mapping? That is, one thing can be mapped to one thing only. One thing cannot be mapped to one or two or more things, right? For example, this function takes 0 and 0 square is 0. It takes 1 and returns 1 because 1 square is 1. It takes 2 and returns 4. Takes 3, returns. So what it takes is the argument. What it returns is the value. And then it takes 4 and returns 16 and so on. Now the point is the function. So this is the function. This is a very rough way of representing a function. The function x square takes 4 as an argument. That makes it 4 square, and that is 16. Now this cannot be anything else. It cannot be 15 or 12 or 17. So this is a function when it takes one argument and yields one value. It cannot yield more than one values. So for example, x is father is a function because when it takes Rama, one individual, one argument, it yields Dasharatha. But on the other hand, what is a non-function? Square root of x. This function takes 4 and you don't know what it's going to yield. It may yield plus 2 or it may yield minus 2. So this is not a function, right? This is not a function, although it's a relationship. It's not a function. Similarly, in our language, x's child is not a function. Why not? Because it takes Dasharatha and then it can give you multiple values. It can give you Rama or Lakshmana or Bharata or Shatrughna or Shanta. You don't know what it's going to return. That is the reason this is not a function. And the denotation of a sentence, what is it? Once again, we just saw it, but here a little more. Anvita is a singer, so let's compute it. So this is the function, actually the meaning of it, the reference of it. So is a singer, or the reference of is a singer, and then it takes the reference of Anvita as an argument and it yields 1 because it is the function. So you imagine that there is a bracket here. I didn't put it everywhere. So you see Anvita is sitting here and she is mapped to 1, and so this takes Anvita and maps her to 1. The result is 1, which means that Anvita is a singer. So you compute the value of a sentence against a given model. So Nikhil knows Shruti, as I said, is slightly complicated because here Shruti comes first, the object comes first, then the subject comes. So it will be something like this. First you go to Shruti then, and then you go to Nikhil. So this is Nikhil, and the value is 1. So therefore 1. Now, another very important thing. Frege distinguishes between sense and reference. These are both meaning elements. What is a sense? When a linguistic expression is given, it guides you to its reference through a road, right? For example, take this: the largest prime between 0 and 100 is greater than 5. So, what is this, the largest prime between 0 and 100? You may not you may not compute it immediately, but it guides you. It gives you a roadmap, So, the ideas, for example, the senses of each and everything here, largest, prime. So, here is prime, right? The largest prime between 0 and 100. So, and then through this connects the largest one, then where? Between 0 and 100, right? So that gives you the reference. So the reference is here, 97. So 97 comes following this route. So this becomes the sense of it. So this is one meaning element, the sense. Then the rest consider is greater than 5. So is it greater than 5? So once again, you follow a path. So you compute greater than and then 5 and everything. And what it yields here is this function where everything greater than 5, 6 onwards is mapped to 1, and everything less than or equal to 5 maps onto 0. So this takes 97, definitely 97 is greater than 5, and then as a result you get 1, right? So there are meaning elements of two types. One is the sense and one is this reference in Western semantics. We will see that in Indian semantics it's slightly different. Anyways, now a picture, a comparison. So the Western formal semantics wants its model to consist mainly of the individuals and truth values, 1 and 0, and at most, if you want, the relations between. So very complex network of relations between these individuals, right, which are basically functions. But the Indian semantic model wants everything here. It wants green trees and beautiful hills and definitely people, and not that it has just individuals and functions or sets. Here this creature has got a color which inheres in it, and this creature is it's moving, it can move, right? So movement is there in it. So we want to have all these varieties in our model. Now we are going to study an Indian semantic model. Basically, this is the Nyaya model. We don't have time for doing other models which are equally wonderful. But to start with, it's nice to know the Nyaya view. Basic ideas, and we will compare. It is going to be kind of a comparative study of the grammarian's view and the Nayayika's view, that is the logician's view, because that comparison is going to be very helpful for us. First of all, pada, or the unit of Indian syntax. According to the Nayayika, a pada is the minimum meaningful unit, shaktam padam. What does it mean? For example, consider gachati, which is a combination of gam dhatu and the verb gam, and then ti, which is an inflection, that is the third personal singular present tense inflection, that gives you gachati. So gachati is actually two morphemes, it is not one. For example, consider John sleeps. This is not two words, because it has got at least 4 different units. John, which is an indivisible thing, and the nominative singular. Now the nominative singular is not represented, so it is kind of zero morpheme. Physically speaking, it's invisible, but it's very much there. Because when you see, for example, he goes, but I saw him, you can see that in the case of he goes, although it is not marked, when it comes to him, it is marked, the accusative is marked. So we assume that in the case of he goes, there is this unmarked nominative. So the same works here, John plus the nominative ending, and then sleep, the main kriya, the verb, and then s, which is the third singular present tense inflection, s. So there are 4 morphemes in this very sentence. So And then, but the grammarian would say that suptingantam padam, that is an inflected uh, unit, is a pada. So gachati itself, which is inflected, for them is a pada. So it is not actually two padas or two units. It is one pada, one unit for them. Then vakya. So the Nayayika would say that a vakya is any significant combination of morphemes. For example, Ramaha itself is a phrase. So for the Nayayika, it's a phrase. So it is Rama plus Su, which is the nominative singular ending. And for the grammarian, a vakya, this is now very important. Panini does not define it. Patanjali also doesn't define it. Vatikakara Katyayana defines it. He says ekating vakyam. That means it's a unit having at least one inflection. For example, gauhu gachati. Here, gauhu is not a vakya because there is no thing, there is no conjugational ending. This is a conjugational ending because it comes after a verb. So gachati, gachataha, gachanti, all these these, right? So it means either a cow is going or the cow is going. But the point is something having at least one conjugational ending is a vakya, otherwise not. It goes pretty close to the idea of a sentence in the Western grammar. We are not comparing the two. Now, a very important, once again, a very important contrast. So, a word can have many different powers, many different abilities. One is the power of association, smarakatva. It's based on memory. So, if Dick and Tom are all the time seen together, I'll remember Tom when I see Dick. It's the law of association. Similarly, because I know that the word, say, cow and the animal cow are related, that association is there in my mind. So when somebody says cow, I remember a cow. That's very natural, but that is not what we are looking for here. So the word has got another power called Shakti or Abhidha. It's the primary semantic power of a word to yield its primary meaning. What does it mean? So here is a Sanskrit definition of that. Abhidha is Shabda Bodha Anukula Pada Padartha Sambandha. Is the relation R between the morpheme M and its meaning M. We would denote, you remember from a few previous slides that we have decided to denote the reference of a word like this in this bracket. So M and its meaning M when R causes the semantic relation. We will talk about it in great details. And then there is another. So for example, before we go to that thing, Ganges, the word, primarily means this stream of water you see several times in your life. So, but then there is also another power called Lakshana, which is the secondary semantic power. How to understand it? The primary meaning sometimes generates another meaning. This power of the primary meaning is Lakshana. So it is not the word, but the primary meaning of the word that presents the secondary meaning. How is it? For example, the word Ganges in the phrase, my house is on the Ganges, first generates its primary meaning, where you have your house on the Ganges, on the stream of Ganges, in the mind of the hearer. But soon the hearer realizes that there is something wrong with this kind of an understanding. No house can actually be on the stream. Therefore, there is an adjustment. And now on, the Ganges would mean the bank of Ganges. So the house has now shifted from here to there, right? So that adjustment is Lakshana. So the Lakshartha of the word Ganges is now the bank of the Ganges. So that is a deviant meaning. So this is Lakshana, the secondary power of the word. Then we talk about the uniqueness of language. How is it that we are claiming that language is an independent epistemic tool? What is its independence? And first of all, why is the question raised? It is raised because many schools claim that it doesn't have any independence. For example, take the Vaisheshikas, who would say that linguistic understanding is nothing but inference. And you can see a lot of value, a lot of wisdom in this view. For example, so when the speaker says Gauhu, the hearer infers this animal, because all the time the hearer knows that when somebody says this, they mean this. So somebody is saying this, therefore they mean this animal. And then the speaker says chalati, which means moves. And then the hearer infers this very activity of chalanam, right? This kind of movement. So then, therefore, so these two different inferences now are combined, and this combined meaning is now achieved. So somebody says Gauhu Chalati, and then the meaning is this. This is the Vaisheshika theory of inference. So inference here is the epistemic instrument that actually generates the linguistic understanding. But this is sort of completely ruined, rejected by the Nayayika, who claim something. What is something very different? What is the issue? The issue is, suppose you have seen that any place that has Shruti has Anvita, and any place that has Ajinkya has Nikhil. You have seen both, right? After that, you somewhere see in a room Ajinkya and Shruti. From that, what do you infer? You infer both Nikhil from Ajinkya and Anvita from Shruti. But then this inference does not relate them. It merely helps you understand these two individuals. It could very well be this or this. It doesn't matter. And then it doesn't relate the two at all, because there is a relation between this individual and this individual and this individual and this individual. But these two were not known to be related, right? So therefore, there is hardly any relation. But what does language do? When suppose the word X means this red block and the word Y means this blue block, but these two combined are not the meaning of the phrase XY. The meaning is actually the connection, which is a novel thing, a connection between the two blocks. And that connection is for us the sentence meaning. What is the sentence here? XY. This is schematically presented. And the meaning is neither the meaning of X nor the meaning of Y, but a different entity, which is the connection between the meaning of X and the meaning of Y, right? So it's called Anvaya in Sanskrit. So thus, we repeat, the semantic connection or Anvaya between the word meanings is the phrase meaning or Vakyartha. This is the most fundamental notion in Nyaya semantics. Everything else will be defined in terms of this. Now, I read a very important passage from Jayanta's Nyaya Manjari, Pramana Lakshanam. The passage goes, Dvibidha Shabdaha Padatma Vakyatma Cheti Tatra Vakyam Anavagata Sambandham Eva Vakyartham Avagamayitum Alam Abhinava Virachita Shloka Shravane Sati Pada Samaskrita Matinang Tadartha Avagamana Darshanat Ataha Sambandhadigama Mula Pravrittina Anumanena Tasya Kathang Samya Sambhavana. Pramana Lakshanam Nyaya Manjari.
Linguistic expression are of two types, words and sentences. The semantic relation conveyed by a sentence is not known before cognizing the sentence. All the sentence does is make its meaning known. This is evident from the fact that one who knows the meanings of the words of a newly composed verse understands its sentential meaning. On the contrary, the relation that constitutes the base for an inference has to be known before making the inference. Such being the case, how is testimony the same as inference?
The point is, suppose you tell me that a cow is moving somewhere. I never heard that sentence before. For the first time I hear it, and I understand the meaning. What is the meaning? It's the connection between cow and moving and somewhere, all these meanings, right? Now, I previously never saw these connected things in the reality. So I don't have the Vyapti Jnana. I never apprehended any relation of coexistence of these things, right? So Anumana is not supposed to work in this case. I read another quote. Look at the Sanskrit of these great acharyas. This is by Anandabodha Bhattaraka. This is from a commentary called Nyaya Deepika, which is on Prakashatmayati's Shabda Nirnaya. The quote goes, Tatra manantara virodhat yatha prayogam ananviteshu padartheshu tat abhidhaginam shabdanang itaretara anvaya yogya vibhakti sambandhitaya sanghatya buddhau sannidhanang shabdanang doshaha.
If a group of words are related through proper linguistic relations, they produce a combined meaning, even if the combination is impossible in reality. A great problem with words.
Language has got a glue, an automatic glue. You put anything in it, it will glue those things. It doesn't matter whether those things are actually glued in the reality. That is, whether those things are actually related in the reality. Now we go to another topic, the freshness of phrase meaning. We talked about its independence. Now it's freshness. The point is, it is not recollection. It is rather a fresh cognition like perception. So when I perceive a pot, I never think that, well, I had it before. Even if I saw the pot before, my perception is, well, it's a pot, and the cognition is new. The pot may not be new, but there is novelty in my cognition I attain. Now, suppose I hear Anvita reads a few random words written somewhere. So, what will I do when I hear her do that? So she goes,
Uncle.
And then I think of some uncle, my uncle, or somebody's uncle. Then
Hurry.
And then I get to remember. So this is like I remember Hari.
Is coming.
And then I remember this very act, because this is just recollection.
Home.
And then I remember home. But do I have any information when she just reads some random words? I don't. Why not? It is because she never meant to speak. She never communicated. That means that that reminding of other elements, when some words remind you of some other meanings, there is hardly any meaning relation. There is hardly any communication. So remembering is not knowing something on being told, right? So then when am I informed of Hari's coming home? When she says,
Uncle Hari is coming home.
Now this is a concern for me, because now this means this, right? Now it conveys this meaning. So remembering the meanings of words is hardly communicative. It is hardly informative. What is informative is actually when the words do the semantic activity, right? When the words give their meanings through this very special ability, very special power, abhidhana. That is the reason, perhaps that is the reason we may sort of explore this line. When somebody, so in the case of memory loss, somebody loses all kinds of, or many associations, right? They have seen Dick and Tom together all their lives, but then when they see Dick, they don't remember Tom. But even then, that person may not lose their language, right? So the linguistic understanding, even then when I tell that person that Hari is coming, he doesn't know who Hari is, but he understands that somebody is coming. So it is perhaps because language can do something very different, something different other than reminding of meanings and stuff. And then, so the point is the phrase meaning is novel and fresh. Anubhavaka. It is not recollection. The conditions. What makes a phrase a proper phrase? That is semantically fit. Before I understand a phrase, it must be proper. What makes a phrase proper? There are 3 conditions, but 2 are very important. We are going to read the 2. One is akanksha, or mutual expectancy. What does that mean? It is the relation E between the morphemes X and Y such that Y stands semantically unrelated, unconnected, without being connected with Y. For example, river, I, she, go. What does it mean? Look at river. What kind of connection does it have with I or any other thing? So it stands nirakanksha, unconnected. So it's not, this string is not grammatical. The same happens to I. Even if I said, river I am going, that would be semantically unconnected because river, at least one element there, would stand unconnected. So nirakanksha. So if any expression has any unexpected element in it, we say that that expression is not a phrase, it's not a vakya, it does not mean anything. Now, akanksha will play a very central role. Now, we analyze a phrase, gauhu gachati, which means a cow is going or the cow is going. So it has got four morphemes. We talked about it. That is go and su, which is the inflectional ending, and then gam, the dhatu, the verb, and then ti. That makes it a cow is going. Here, all morphemes are sakanksha. Go is connected with su, gum is connected with ti, and in turn, both are connected. That is their akanksha. So you can see the connections. Because of their connectivity, their mutual connectivity, or their expectancy, that is, go expects su to supply it with kind of completeness, completion, whatever you say. So then that makes a unit, and the same applies here. And then both the units make another unit. This is how it goes. And another aspect is asatti, that is uninterrupted occurrence. Somebody says gauhu now, and after 5 days gachati. No meaning would come. You have to say gauhu gachati if you want to communicate. That is asatti, another very important aspect, another criterion for an expression to be a phrase. And then we will talk about the genesis of sentence meaning. There are actually many theories about the genesis of sentence meaning, basically the computation of meaning units and the process. We are mostly concerned about the Nyaya theory and its main opponent, which is the Prabhakara theory. You'll see very easily why these two are sort of almost, they form kind of a polar opposition. We'll first see the Nyaya theory, which is called Samsarga Maryadavada. Samsarga Maryada basically means akanksha, which is the mutual expectancy. As I already said, when I say that I, there, goes, all the words here are anakanksha, nirakanksha. So they're not expectant at all. I can also say river I go. Here, this river stands completely unconnected. It doesn't expect any other word, or no other word expects it. Sort of expectation here means somehow responding to my. It is like the valency in chemistry. So there is nothing else in a phrase like river I go to. So look at river. There is nothing to hold the hand of river here. So it is this kind of a thing. Now, let us consider a perfectly formed, a well-formed sentence or phrase, that is, Hari is coming home. And here is our speaker, and here is the hearer. What happens? What is the mechanism? Basically, the computation, right? The main interest for the main concern for the cognitive science person. So we can see that this comes in a sequence. So first, we understand that everything is analyzed now into padas, that is morphemes. So Hari is actually two morphemes, Hari and the nominative ending, and they give first their respective meanings. According to the Nayayika, the logician, the meaning of the nominative ending, which is in Sanskrit su, the singular ending, Hari plus su, that makes it Harihi. So in English, it is unmarked. That is actually an attempt which is there in the individual. That attempt, I borrow some terms from Jonathan Ganry, from his semantic powers. He calls it instigation. So when I go somewhere, I have an attempt which instigates some going, right? That's how I go somewhere. That attempt in Sanskrit is called kriti. So it is kind of a subjective effort which the agent has. So yeah, so both these things. So Hari gives Hari, which is the meaning of the word Hari, and the nominative ending gives the attempt. And then the next one, coming, and then we understand that coming is this thing, right? This kind of a movement towards the hearer or the speaker for that case. And then you have finally home, which is home plus accusative. And what is the meaning of the accusative ending? It is basically objectness. So it denotes the object whenever. So you have this gruham, harihi gruham agachati. So gruham, this is the objective, the objectness that is there in the house. But these are all unrelated. The person, that is our Hari, the attempt, the objectness, the house, and the activity called agamana, coming. All these are unrelated. But we know that there is akanksha, so there is mutual expectancy in the words, right? So the first pair we consider, because this akanksha is there, a relation now is born between the attempt and Hari, the real person who is presented now to me as the meaning. And now it is an attempt that resides in Hari. And look at this pair now. Because it is home plus accusative, objectness now belongs, or rather the objectness goes to the house, to be housed, right? And the next one is come, eng. So come is the verb, the activity, eng is the state, right? That is the continuous present, and which is basically this thing, this continuous activity. So now there is also another connection. These two are connected. That is, coming and home are connected. So according to the Nyayika, it is determination. So here is the kriya, the verb, which determines the objectness that is there in the house. It will be, or in home actually. This will be much clearer when we actually see the Nyayika's analysis of it. But this is a demonstration of it. And then there is this grand connection between these two, right? And as a result of that, now the attempt which is there in Hari gets connected with instigating, anukulatva. And so now the attempt instigates. So previously there was an attempt, but that was not instigating anything. Now the attempt, the moment it gets connected with the activity, it instigates the activity. These things were not there. These connections were not there before. We don't know whether these connections are there in reality. But in our cognitive world, our word meanings now get connected. So what is the result of it? So here is the speaker who says Hari is coming home, and here is the hearer. He understands, or she understands, this very activity of Hari's coming home, or this very event of Hari's coming home. This is what, if you want to picturize what you verbally knew, it would be something like this. Now this is the theoretical part. What is the Sanskrit construction for this? Gruhanishtha karmatva nirupaka agamana anukula krutiman harihi. So if you translate it into our notation system, you find Hari has an attempt basically, which instigates, which is the instigator of coming, and which determines an objectness, which is there in home, right? So that is how home, or here our home, becomes the object, because it has objectness, and that is determined by an attempt. What kind of an attempt? The kriti, the attempt which supports coming, or which instigates coming. So without that attempt, there is no coming, right? So when I do something, when I'm an agent, there is something in me which makes me the agent. What qualifies me is basically that attempt, right? So then there is another thing. That attempt is there also in me, or sorry, in this case, in Hari. And what is the relation? Now, it is there in Hari through inherence. It is inherent, because we know that most attributes of the soul, all attributes of the soul, the self, are there in the self through inherence. So the attempt inheres in Hari. So these are the abbreviations. Now the point is, the red elements are not presented by the words. The non-red elements are given by, basically this has and also should not be given. So what the words gave are Hari, home, objectness, coming, attempt. What were not there are the nishthatva, that is residing, the determination, the instigation, and inherence. All these relations, rather this network of relations, are generated by the word meanings, that is this thing. Why are they generated? Because the words are connected through mutual expectancy. That expectancy. Now, where is all this happening? In the cognitive world of the hearer, right? So look at the computation part of it. And then this is a unique point the Nayayika wants to make. What is it? What is the meaning of this sentence that is Hari is coming home? Harihi gruham agachari. The meaning is this gruhanishta karmatva nirupaka agamana anukula krutiman harihi. This is the meaning of it. And parts of it are actually generated by language itself. It is unique to the human language to create, to generate such relations between word meanings, which are given. That is how we explain the infinitude of sentences. When we have such limited words, right? Our units are limited. But how many sentences do we have in our language? We have infinite sentences, potentially infinite sentences. It is because every sentence is different from another because of this network of generated connections, generated meanings, whatever you call them. So here the causal analysis of it, as we want to once again look at this computation as a causal procedure. So what is the causal instrument here? The karana is the knowledge of the words. Here the words are Hari is coming home. And the semantic presentation of the meanings, which is like this part, if you call, where things were presented. So yeah, so all these things are presented, right? This presentation is the vyapara, the operation, which was like if you compare this to the felling of the tree case, it was the dynamic contact between the axe and the tree, right? And then finally, what is the effect? The effect is the semantic knowledge. The effect is the meaning, the connection, the genesis of the semantic connections, anvaya. That is the phala or the effect of it. Now, this is not the only analysis of the genesis of sentence meaning. There are several others. As I said, one very important and sort of dramatically opposed to this Nayayika, this Nyaya understanding is the one proposed by the Prabhakara Mimamsakas, which is called Anvita Abhidhanavada. What is the point? So, Anvitanam Abhidhana. So, in this case, we have seen that first the Abhidhana happens. That is, first the word meanings are yielded. Then, so after the Abhidhana, they get connected. The Anvaya happens through due to the Samsarga Maryada or the Akanksha. That is why it's called Samsarga Maryada Vada. But then when we consider this new theory, it is completely different, because in this case, the Abhidhana is the last thing to happen. Here, the connection, rather the network of connection, which is the Vakyartha, the sentence meaning, is also the meaning of the words, not one word, but the network of words. So the point is, the network of words generates the network of meanings. How does it happen? So yes, the speaker says Hari and the hearer remembers Hari. So this is just remembering. That's why I have put it in this calling cloud to tell you that this is just memory, nothing else. So that is why it is not linguistic understanding, because it's just remembered. Hari is remembered. And then coming. So is coming. So this is kind of, this represents coming, and then finally home, and home is present at. Now these are all remembered meanings, notice, and these are unconnected. Now once again, because these are connected, that is, these have expectancy and all that stuff, so they fulfill all criteria. This is not like hurry or coming river, right, which is where there is no expectancy. Because of that structure, what happens is, now the abhidhana happens, but this becomes the result of the abhidhana together, this thing. So no piecemeal solution is given to it. It is just one thing, right? Not that there are separate flowers and there is a thread and then I make a garland. Nothing like that. The entire garland with the thread, with the flowers and everything come together from the network of words. This is the Anvita Abhidhana theory. I always thought, for a very long time, I have been thinking that there should be some experiment on it. How does the human being interpret the meanings of sentences? Is it like they separately consider each and every word and then they connect those and make the sentence meaning? Or is it the case that they somehow store words in their memory after the speaker is done with the utterance of one sentence, and then after the words are all stored, the meaning comes as a network of word meanings? Which one is the case? We don't know. I personally think there must be some kind of experiment to see this. It may not be very difficult to see this when the interpretation comes. So, but I don't think there is anything. So here we raise a demand for conducting kind of experiments to show which one is correct, right? So then the next question is about meaning itself. What kind of a thing is it? What is a meaning? Now, there are different aspects to it, to the meaning, but so for example, one is this. Look, when I say Hari is coming home, it's unproblematic because Hari is a person and I know who that person is. And then is coming is an activity. So that activity can belong to infinite individuals, no problem. And home here, definitely one home is meant. That's my home and my brother come home, something like that. But the problem is with the common noun, such as elephant, man, woman, writer, poet, philosopher. Because in Sanskrit, not just because, this is one of the reasons. Now, in Sanskrit, there is no article. There is no a or the or an or anything, right? So I want to say the man, I will say naraha. I want to say a man, I'll say naraha. So what is the meaning? Is it the entire universal, like all men, or is it just one man, one specific man? Difficult to say. The Nayayika's answer is it is the propertied particular. It is the propertied individual, or the individual with the universal. How does it work? Then, when you compute the meaning, depending on the context, you decide or you read the meaning either as an individual or as a universal. For example, consider this sentence: the cow is a quadruped animal. In this, the speaker is not making a claim about an individual cow. Rather, they are commenting on every cow, which means anything having cowness, right? Gotvavachinna. Gotvavachinna. This is the point. All things limited by cowness. And so in this case, it would be the property, the jati. What about bring that cow? Definitely, this cow is not all cows. Remember, in Sanskrit, it would be pretty much like bring cow, and this would be pretty much like cow is a quadruped animal. You don't have any article. So that's the reason it becomes all the more difficult in Sanskrit. In this case, bring that cow or bring the cow, the individual is focused. It all depends on the context. But this is not the main question I wanted to address here. My question was, Is the meaning a cognitive element, or is it a real element? Does it belong to the ontology, or does it belong to my cognitive world? Is it just an intellectual element, or is it something which is real? My answer is it is both. The moment I say that something is the meaning of a word, there is a directionality, there is a dynamism. Yes, I reach the real person, but not directly through my cognitive world. The entire journey is called meaningness, if you like, right? So something becomes a meaning through my mind, not without my mind. This is a very, very important feature of the Nyaya philosophy, or for that case, most Indian philosophers. We're not getting there. But here I address this issue directly with some examples. Now, look at this. So, for example, I tell Anvita that a white unicorn is roaming in the forest. She goes,
What is a unicorn?
it is like a horse with a single horn. Then
Oh, now I understand.
then in her mind, this is the picture she has, right? Now, what is the content of it? The content is a unicorn, and she did not understand what a unicorn was. It had to be reduced. In order to be understood, it had to be reduced into horn and horse, right? So I understand the meaning of something that is familiar. If it is not familiar, I have to familiarize it. I have to reduce it to familiar things. Otherwise, I don't understand any meaning. It is pretty so the thing is, it is almost like bringing things from the memory. So when I talk about an imaginary object, and when I understand, somebody talks about an imaginary object, and when I understand, my understanding would bring things perhaps from the memory, memory about real things, and will make an object. It's not very different from an illusion. For example, Anvita goes to a forest and she sees a white horse, but then she has an illusion. Oh, it's a unicorn, because she's so fascinated by the idea of a unicorn and all that stuff. So this illusion is perfectly fine. What is the object of this illusion? It is sensually present. The object is, like, if you want to analyze the object, it is mental, but then it has its root in your perception, right? You store things in your memory somewhere. Now those things come together and they unite to make this unicorn. So that's why perhaps when I talk about a real person, say Kapil Dev, so somebody tells me Kapil Dev is now playing cricket in Delhi. I understand what they're saying. Now, what is the content of this verbal cognition I have? It is the real. So the content, part of the content, is the real Kapil Dev who is there. Suppose he's not playing cricket right now. Suppose he's sleeping. It doesn't matter. Still, it is about him, right? But then, language is like the cognitive content. It's like memory. It can all the time combine things and make things. Even perception can do the same thing, like the illusion. So if both a unicorn is roaming in the forest and something as real as now in India, we are suffering from problems associated with the coronavirus. If both are given by language, how are they related to the reality? Uh, Both can yield meanings, right? If both can yield meanings, then what is the point? What is it the language is doing? To answer that, we say this. So my mother tells me that,
Hari is coming home.
and then I understand this thing. How is it related to the reality? If my mother is an apta, Punglinga, that is the masculine gender form, is apta, Strilinga form is apta. If my mother is a trustworthy speaker who cognizes the world correctly, then I have information about the world, right? Then I know something, I have attained knowledge about the real world out there, provided the speaker is trustworthy, provided the source is trustworthy. So this is a very important thing. And another very important point I want to tell you is, look how Western syntax is systematic, and it does a lot of things and all that stuff. But so, for example, look at the hierarchy, the way we talk, the tree, the syntactic tree we constructed yesterday. What about the Indian tree? Look, already there is a tree here, a structure, right? You see this, you say this, if you put it in our symbolic language, the tree becomes evident, right? It's blatantly there. So this is the last element which is there in Hari, and this is qualified by this. So this is one group, this is one group, this is one group, and this is, the whole thing is another group, right? So we could have said Hari are, then this attempt, right? Saying that this attempt is there in Hari through inherence. So there is kind of a grouping, no doubt that there is a grouping in our syntax also, or it is, you call it semantic or syntax, or syntactic or semantics, because it is both at a time, right? So we get back to the old question. And then ambiguity. Could we deal with it? Yes, we could. For example, take a famous ambiguity, stout major's wife. It is ambiguous because it could either mean that the major is stout and we are talking about his wife, or it could mean that there is a major and we are talking about his stout wife, right? Now, this is ambiguous. How do we deal with ambiguity? We can either say Pinatva Vishishta Raja Nishtha Pitritva Nirupita Putratvavan. So this is disambiguation of Pina Rajaputraha, fat king son, right? Fat prince. But basically, prince will not do. Fat king son. Or it could mean Rajanishta Pitritva Nirupita Putratvavan. And then I missed something. This should be Pinatvavan. So that is fatness, having fatness, right? So either it may mean that that we are talking about a king who is Pina, and then that king has Pitritva, fatherness, which is determined by sonness, which is there in this guy, right? Or it could mean, that's a completely different interpretation. It could mean that the king has Pitritva, which is determined by Putratva, and that very Putratvavan, that very person who has that kind of a Putratva also has Pinatva, fatness in him, right? So I missed something. Add Pinatva here. Finally, few references which are very, very, very important. This is nothing. I should have given you at least 1,000 books. I can't. That's why I give you some very important ones. Now, this Ganry J, semantic powers, is very important for all the meaning related things, and this is very important, the lost stage of reason, for all other analytic issues like inference and knowledge and stuff. Perception of B.K. Motilal, a very, very important book about almost everything. This is a guidebook, and also this one, very important about the study of language, word and the world. And then Jane Mohanty's Gangesha's Theory of Truth. It is an absolutely great one for studying the theories of truth and knowledge and stuff. And this is another guidebook by Stephen Phillips and Sri Tatacharya, which is Epistemology of Perception. And so this actually translates Gangesha's Tattva Chintamani. So I would suggest that sometime, if you have time, you may read one of these. And I acknowledge my indebtedness to Anvita Guha, Shruti Bhatt, and Ajinkya Deshmukh for the constant support and suggestions. I also thank Professor Vinita Chandra for giving me the very idea that I could offer a course on Indian cognitive science. Thank you very much.